So we're recording. I wanted to look at how to sonify collisions of physical bodies in Max. So there's many ways to do that. You can send collision data to wherever you want, or you can just leave it locally in Max. Today I'll use Super Collider just to give an idea of how you might send OSC over UDP. What does that mean? That means Open Sound Control is a protocol for sending data that's kind of like MIDI, but a newer version. It looks a little bit more like a web address. So you might say slash frequency and then send a number after it. And whatever program receives that has to know how to deal with that particular non-standard language. Or you could do the same thing with MIDI, but today I'll use OSC because we've not covered that, I don't believe, in this semester or last semester. It's very simple. And so I'll be sending it over to Super Collider. And I'm going to simplify a little bit the physical world we're dealing with, because there's really not a great way in Max proper to sort out all the data. So if you have, 40 objects in the space, each object would have to know how it interacts with another object, and it could become quite a mess. Really, probably a good reason to use JavaScript in Max to deal with these dictionaries of information about the collision and be able to sort it all out. But I'll show you how to do it in Max. It's a little messy, but it works. All right, so let's dive right in. I did grade midterms, except for one. You know who you are. And it was a good job. Good job by everybody. There were varying degrees of thoroughness with the historical portion, but everybody did a good job. Because of the way grading works, I was more picky with some people than others, just based on my mood. But it all works out. I thought that Ryan had a particularly interesting response to the idea of how do we analyze Kandinsky's Composition 8 in light of the quote by Walter Potter, which says all art aspires to the condition of music. And so he's talked about that maybe that has to do with music's ability to move us physically, right? So rhythm, for instance, without any external context, right? It doesn't represent a crying baby or a beautiful rose. It is just a rhythm, and we feel that. I thought that was an interesting take. I'm not sure that's what Walter Pater says, but
I really believed that it maybe aspires to the condition of the music of that time period of free jazz and of John Cage, because it does that. His works don't seem to aspire to Mozart, not a reflection of quality, but just like it seems like it aspires to his contemporary musicians.
Well, I would agree with that as well. But at the same time, I would say that more generally, what that quote means, and I referenced, I think, in almost everybody's midterm, Patricia Herzog, who writes a paper about this to try to explain what's going on. Like, what does he mean by that? He means that subject and form, or what Pater calls matter and form, are merged in music. There's no separation. And in art, there's a separation, right? And he argues that art should aspire to obliterate that separation. It's an interesting thought, and it does lead to maybe Kandinsky's work, which tries to get rid of the subject and form separation, and it's all the same. There is no external subject that is divorced from the form. It's all one and the same. Maybe. Anyway, it was thought-provoking to read your answers, so I appreciate that. So with that, let's look at how we do what we're going to do. And I think what I'll do, let's see here. So I'll just start totally fresh, because let's save this one. I'm going to grab from before. Oh, lost it now. So let me find the old patch we've been working on, I have no idea what it was called. Well, maybe we'll just do it all over again. So what I wanted to get was the bounding box, but maybe here it's a good idea that I just start from scratch. So jit.world, a draw space, and at the phys world name, we'll call it physics again. And that's all we need for it to go, just like that. And it's good to have this send phys message up. And the best way to do that is prepend. So put at the beginning of the list this word send phys, and then we can send whatever we want to the physics world of jit.world. So for example, turn the world box on and off, or set the gravity how we want it. By default, it's negative 9.8, maybe 9.6. Can't remember. Somehow 9.8 doesn't look right. I bet it's 9.6, but it won't matter for us. Okay, and then the handy dandy jit.gl.physdraw and the jit.phys.picker. And again, just a reminder that these things belong to different parts of the world. Okay. Looking good. So let's turn it on and move our camera back, jit.gl.camera. This is on draw space. All right, so there's our world box. Let's change the scale of the world box. So I think that's called world box scale, size. All right, so I can't remember what it is. And if I look at the jit.world, it's not going to tell me that, right? It doesn't have anything that says world box size or anything like that. So how do I deal with that? How do I find out what this message is?
It's in the physdraw, right? In the gl.physdraw. It's in all the physics objects.
Well, I don't see it there. Let's see. World name, smooth shading. No.
No.
Draw world box.
Can't you look at the reference?
Let's look at the reference. So don't see it there. Not there.
You have to send it. Oh wait, oh, we just looked at it and there was not an option for it. I know in the with this world box, or it's sending to the physdraw stuff.
Well, kind of. It's sending to the jit.phys.
Oh, sorry.
World, I think it's called, or
the phys world. You have to like address it separately, right?
Right. So here's the object that's inside the jit.world, and unfortunately, it doesn't give us any reference to that. So you have to actually pull this object out, and that's where you can find all the messages that belong.
Oh, I
to
see.
this.
All right.
So here's the attribute world box scale, 555. So I was on the right track. So let's make it 15 by 15. Well, let's make it 10 by 15 by 15. So we have like a hall. I don't know why I want to do that, but I could have just made a bounding box there, but I chose to do this, so I'm going to do it. So there we go. So now we're here. Let me move this camera back a little bit. Sure. So now what I want to do, I have this world box thing, but really in actuality, I want to put walls and ceilings and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make those things. And you'll recall that there's a jit.phys.body. And we're going to put this in the physics world. And I'm going to say that I want the restitution of this to be high. Oh, but look what I did. I didn't put it anywhere and it made a sphere. So I also have to define what the shape of this is. So shape is a cube, because a wall is a cube, but not with even scaling. So at scale, we'll say that this is the floor. So the floor should probably be as wide as the room is. It should probably not be as tall as the room. And it should be as deep as the room is. So this will be our floor. So let's name it floor. And let's position it at the center of the room, down on the floor, and in the center of the depth of the room. And there we have it. Now we have the floor at the bottom.
You have to give it a mass of 0 if this
Thank
is
you.
going to be a wall.
That's right. So either mass of 0 or kinematic 1.
Oh,
I'll say mass 0. Both do the same thing. And we'll make now the ceiling. So there it is up there. And we will make a wall. So let's call this wall left. And we have to position it in the correct place. So now we want this to be over to the left, which is negative, what do we do? Negative 10. And the scale of this now should be 0.1 wide, but the correct height. So there it is. And the wall right now be over here. There we go. And we'll make a back wall. So this one will need to be not quite as deep as the room. And will need to be positioned back, back in the back of the stuff. I didn't do that right. What did I miss? Oh, scaled it the wrong way. There we go. And finally, we'll make the front wall which gets positioned in the front.
Dr. Thompson, I apologize. I filled my water bottle up. Why are we making these all cubes?
Because a wall is a cube.
Oh, it's just a really skinny cube, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it can't be a plane, really.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't think I can make a physical body that is a plane because it's not three-dimensional. So I'm making as close to a plane as I can make. But, I can change the wall thickness if I want, for whatever that means. Okay, so there we go. There's our
Because even-
bounding box. Go ahead.
Like plywood's not two-dimensional, right?
No, it's still three-dimensional. I would argue that nothing in our world is actually two-dimensional. For the deep thought of the day, Jack Handy. Jack Handy was a character on a show called Saturday Night Live, which is started last century. You might know Jack Handy, Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. Oh, wow. Well, that's your YouTube assignment for today. Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. All right, so now that we have, the reason I made that, right, is so that we might make another body that might be a sphere, for instance. And the scale of this does not need to be so gigantic. we'll name it ball 1, and it will have a mass of 1, and we'll just we don't need to position it anywhere really because starting in the center is fine. And let's give it some bounciness, so at restitution 1, and I just want to have it have no damping for air resistance, either linear or angular. And so there's our bouncing ball. Now if I want to make any of these look like something, right, then I have to draw stuff in the space. If I turn off the physical drawing, we don't see anything. So none of these things have any sort of GL associate with them. And so let's make jit.gl.gridshape on the draw space at shape cube for all of these things. So here I'm going to, let's put this all into its own, all the wall into its own patcher. So I encapsulate it with Command-Shift-E, and we'll call this the bounding box. And we'll put this back in here, and I can turn off the world box. I think it's already off. Yeah, there we go. And now I want to associate a shape with my walls so the walls look like something in particular. Let's just set it to the side of this. That'll work. So there's one. Another one. Another one. Another one. A little bit of a tedious setup process, but shouldn't take you more than about 15 minutes to do something like this. So it's not bad. And then once you've got it, you can do what you will. So of course it looks pretty garbage right now because there's no lighting enabled for this. So let's make a jit.gl.material. And in the interest of time, I will just draw a line to all of these different things here. Right, and it looks like I need to move my camera up a little bit. So let's just position it where we would like. Something's not quite right here. What did I miss? Bounding box, here we go. Okay, just the material was a little bit gross. All right, and I'm just going to get this camera positioned in the right place. Ooh, hey. So there's the front of the wall. Well, this could be better, but this will work for now. Actually, it kind of won't, because I need to see the floor at least. So let's, oh my gosh. So let's make this, should take you 15 minutes, but maybe it won't.
You could rotate the camera by
That's
using
true.
the direction parameter or whatever.
Let's change the look at. So let's look at 0 point negative, well, $1 and 0 point. And it has been my experience that when you do this, you also need to hit the position again, strangely. All right, so there we go. We'll look down here. That's fine. It's really not ideal, but it's going to be okay. We'll just look around as we do it. I think I made this box too crazy. Anyway, all right, so here's our physical body, and we also need a grid shape for that. So jit.gl.gridshape on the draw space, shape sphere. There we go. And we'll make a material for that as well. And that'll be fine. Let's make one more ball in here. So we'll call this one ball 2. All right. And so now they can hit each other. They can hit the stuff. And because I have the fizz picker, I can grab those things and toss them around as I would like. Okay. So the goal now is we would like to know, let's say, when each of these, or maybe just, yeah, when each of these balls hits the ground, let's say. So how do we know that? So the first thing we have to do is, let's say for this ball right now, we're going to turn on collisions. All right, so what that's going to do is now it's going to report collisions. And an improvement made not too recently, but more recently than not, was that every object will report its own collisions. So now if we were to print here, the collisions reported by this ball, we see that it says, I'll stop that for a second. It says collisions, this is a list coming out of the right side. It's got the words collision, dictionary, and U8980104227. That's not a, it should say ball 1. So sometimes this is my strategy, is to reopen this patch. So I'm going to save this as collision, close it, and then reopen it. Whoops. And I guess I get to do all this again. So 14, look down some way, and redo the material. Whoop, not this one. Redo this material here for no good reason. Okay. And let's see what it has to say for us now. Turn on collisions. Print. Clear this. And let's see that if we're getting something a little better now. No. Oh, that's because it doesn't know what the floor is. Huh. It really should be telling me names that are a little bit more appropriate than this. And it's not. So, can't say why right now. Let's see. I did name these, right? I named them like floor, so forth.
What was the first one you made? Because in creating new objects, I've found that, like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It should be giving them the names that you are giving them, especially
Yes,
since you explicitly changed them to something new.
That's true. I don't really understand that, but I will try again. So let's do this.
Super weird.
Well, I guess we'll roll with it for now. So for whatever reason, that is called not what it's supposed to be called, but it's called U44604049. That is not what I want, but that looks like what I'm going to get for today. No idea why. So what we need to do is we need to route out the word collisions. Which is also not what I remember from before. And let's see what that prints for us. So there we go. That's better. So now we're print. It says floor ball and then it says all of this stuff. Well, that's kind of neat. So it is giving us the dictionary here. So print dictionary, and then it tells us what it collides with. This is not the way I remember this working previously, like yesterday, but let's work with it. So so here we have, let me pull up what I had before just so I don't struggle here. I think you want to iterate through the dictionary here. So a dictionary is just something that associates a name with other values. So here the name floor ball 1 indicates that ball 1 has collided with the floor. And it's kind of interesting it's telling me that right now, but I'm going to iterate through this dictionary and see what happens. Let's see if I get some errors here. Okay, and let's see what comes out of here. Print dictionary iter. Print floor ball. Okay, so I don't even think I need this yet. I think I just need to maybe route out the word floor ball 1. Maybe. Nope. So that's the dictionary. I think I need to route out the word dictionary, I guess. It's kind of weird. It is a dictionary. Okay, let's try this again. So we're printing this, and now I get nothing. That's fantastic. I should have to say which dictionary it is I'm iterating through. So I'm sorry I'm a little confused here, but this isn't working as it's supposed to. And now it prints nothing. We don't need this, I guess. We have to go straight here. All right. So let's see if we can route out the word duration. This is simpler than what I did before. That's nice. All right. So now, yeah, that makes sense that it doesn't work because I should really have to iterate through the dictionary. Dict.iter. Maybe that was my mistake. Good grief. Boo. Okay, so it prints floor ball 1. Yes. Okay, because there's a dictionary of all the things it can collide with, I have to iterate through the dictionary, and it'll tell me everything it collides with. So now we route out which collision we want to deal with. This will all be hopefully a little clearer here in a second. So floor to ball 1. And we'll see that this gives us another dictionary. Right, so dictionary floor ball 1. So now we iterate through that dictionary. And there we get all the information, right? So it's giving us position. Let me stop this for a second. So each collision has the following information, right? It has the position, the normal, contacts, duration, and impulse. So impulse and duration are the ones we'll work with today. And that tells us how long has it been in contact. 0 means the initial contact. So as it stays on the ground, right, we might have a longer duration. So let's see if we're getting that information here. Right, so here you see the duration increasing. So it's been on the floor this long. So we get that information, but for collisions and trying to make a sound when the ball hits the floor, obviously we don't want to just continue to make a sound as the ball sits on the floor. Right, we want it to hear the sound of the ball hitting the floor. And that occurs when the duration is 0. So what I want to do here is I want to work with these two things. So I'm going to route duration and impulse. And let's just look at those values. So there is the duration. So I will let's see, print duration. And here is the impulse, or the strength with which it is hitting the floor right now, which is obviously not going to be very high. So let's check out the impulse there. Very low, just kind of hanging out on the floor. Okay, so with those two things, I think I can sonify the result of this ball hitting the floor. So this little structure, right, which is kind of weird. So we route out the word collisions, which tells us a dictionary of all collisions that have occurred. We choose which collision we want to deal with. In this case, when the floor and the ball 1 collide. Then we get the dictionary associated with that particular collision. And that gives us all sorts of information, of which we're just taking the duration and the impulse at this point. All right, so let's pack those up for fun. So now the impulse can just always be going here, but it is a cold inlet, so we don't always get the output. And we only get the output of this duration, let's say. But let's say that this only occurs when it is, let's try equals 0. So only when the duration equals 0 will this packed message actually be sent out. So let's print that and see what it looks like. False. Oh, the reason that did not work is because this gives me a 1 if it equals 0. So let's do a, what's the best way to do this? Let's do a gate. A couple ways we could do this. So here we'll send all of these let's use the trigger object. So this is going to first open the gate. Oh, tricky. This is a little tricky. There's a couple ways to do this. This will test your Mac skills when you do it. All right, so there's our duration and our impulse, right? And the notion is here that when this is 1, we want to do something. And I can think of numerous ways to do this, and I guess I just need to decide one. So what I want to do is I want to bang out these numbers only when this is a 1. Interesting. So let's say if I can't remember if I have to put an I there or not. Probably so. If 1 is equal to, if input 1 is equal to 1, then bang. Then let's say then I1, and then out 2, bang. So now that little bit of craziness. Oh, I didn't do it right. Let's see, out 1, maybe. I'm gonna have to get the help of if. Conditional options. That looks a lot like what I just did. I must be missing something obvious. I just can't see it.
And
oh, I didn't do else. There we go. If statements. They're important. Okay, so now we've got the bang here. So as we do this now, Oh, I don't want else. Okay, this is fine. Whatever. There we go. Sorry, this is clumsy. All right, so if this equals 1, then give me a bang, let's say. Well, let's say we'll just put these other things in there. So then F1, then God. All right, you guys help me out. This is an easy problem. My brain just doesn't want to do it today.
You could just go the gate route.
Okay, here we go. We got the gate. If this is 1, we'll open it up. But the problem is I want these to come after the fact. So this is going to give me a 1. So I'll do select 1. And when that's 1, and let's do this as a trigger.
That'll send a bang.
Yeah, so trigger I. Hello. Yes, so first we have to open the gate, and then we can do select 1, and if that is true, then we can bang through these numbers.
Yeah, but that. So if it equals 0, then it outputs a 1. Is that what's happening?
That's right, because I only want when the duration is 0. That means it first hit the floor. I don't actually want anything as it remains on the floor. Right? Does that make sense? Because if it's laying on the floor, I don't want to just continually make sound.
And it definitely does have a 0 point where it reports that, right? At some point?
Should do. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
I could do less than some amount, but I'm going to just account on the fact that there is a duration of 0 at some point, which may be folly. We will find out. So here we go. Let's put these here. Now it's getting ugly. Now we're pod racing. Okay, so here we go. This looks really gross. I don't know how to make this look any better, but there it is. All right, so that's doing this. That's doing that. When we bang them out, so this opens the gate, and then we can pack these two numbers together, which both look to be floats. And that can go through the gate, and then we can print. So right now we should be getting nothing, and that's good. And as this ball hits the ground, we should get a single print, which we do. We got a 0 and a 0, a 0 and a 22. Okay, it's kind of working. There's an order of operation problem, but I'll let it go for now. The order of operation problem is the fact that it first printed out as 0. Probably not what we wanted. But we'll deal with that at some future time. All right, so that was a little bit of ugly Max, very typical sort of Max stuff. You have to be prepared. All right, so now that we're getting these single messages, right, that's fantastic. All I really need from that, though, is just the strength of the collision, right? And as it reduces, right, as the height of this bounce gets lower, that impulse should change and get lower. Whew. All right, so that's pretty cool. And I think the best thing to do here is to hide this so that we just pretend like we didn't do something so ugly. There we go. Now it looks better. So this is the, what do you call this? Gate bounce.
You could put the whole thing, including the dictionary iteration and routing, into the same.
Oh, that's true.
Encapsulation is it's all gone.
I like that. So there we go. Well, it's not actually in the spirit of, well, it's fine. There we go. I would think that's not in the spirit of letting a function do one thing, because this actually does two things, but we'll let it go. So this is sort and gate. and reset ball 1. All right, and it still is working, although I don't really enjoy the fact that it's 1 behind, but okay, great. And now what we want to do is we want to route maybe the other stuff. So the other stuff should be called something like, for instance, ceiling, because I think that's what we called it, ball 1. And we can do something like this. So if it hits the ceiling, which is going to be kind of hard to tell, but let's see if we can make it do something like that. Maybe it hit the ceiling? Can't really tell. Maybe we should do a wall instead, because we'll definitely be able to tell that. And sometimes, what is the order of this ceiling ball 1? Sometimes it's ball 1 ceiling. It just depends on which you made first, which is annoying. But let's make sure that we are we're dealing with the proper names. So I'm going to print what comes out of here. So yeah, ceiling ball 1. There we go. So it is hitting the ceiling. Yes, and that value is changing nominally at the ceiling. Yeah, so there's just a lot of ball bouncing going on right now. It doesn't have much restitution, so it just is kind of continually hitting at the same impulse, right? So the same strength. For the sake of now, we'll just let that be. So now what do we want to do, right? So what I would like to do is maybe send this via OSC, because that's what I said I would do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the program Super Collider, which many of you know and some of you do not. And that's okay. This can be anything, but I just wanted to show this. So here I've got an OSC definition. So when this thing called, let's call this floor def. When this thing called floor def receives a certain message, which here I've said impulse cube 1 floor, let's call this ball 1 floor. When it receives this specific message, it's going to run whatever I've said to do inside here. And just believe me for a second that that's what it's going to do. And I'll change this one for the ceiling. So when it receives this message called impulse ball 1 ceiling, it will do this second function. And the way I send the information over there is with UDP, the Universal Data Packet, send, and it says, where would you like to send it? So it says host and port. The host is the IP address of the computer you would like to send it to. So if you want to send it to someone else's computer on a network, you can do that. Realize that this probably won't work very well between your home and the university, for instance, because the university will block all sorts of things from coming in. And you may have at your house a firewall, or it may be the case that the IP address you've been assigned from your Wi-Fi router is not actually your IP address. So you'd have to find your real IP address for this to work over a wide area network, and it can be tricky. You might have to do port forwarding and so forth. On a local area network, this works great. And on your own computer, it works perfectly well. And your computer's local address is always 127.0.0.1. That is the local host, as it's called. So the local IP address, believe it or not, is that number. The port I'm going to send to is somewhat arbitrary, but the program I'm using, Super Collider, I happen to know that the port that it likes to receive stuff on for the language is 57,120. So just depending, if you're sending it to another Max application, you can actually specify which port you receive on. Super Collider, you can also specify which port, but by default it goes to this one, so that's the one I'm going to use. I will prepend what did I say? Impulse ball 1 floor. And I'm going to put that there. And for now, I'm just going to test by sending the number 1. And let me turn on, oh, this is going to get tricky. So now I've got to reboot this server. And it's still sending out the SSL2, so I have to change that by sharing sound in Zoom, I think. Terrible. New share with sound. Share. Go here. Reboot the server again. Input sample rate, okay. For those of you that have done the Super Collider course, this looks quite familiar to you. I did this a lot last year. All right, so here's our Zoom audio device. It's at 48K. The SSL is at 44.1. I hope you still hear me. And we will reboot this server. And now the Zoom is my output device. So now when I send, hopefully you hear that. It's kind of quiet. And that's just me sending a 1. So what is that doing? It's getting the message, and the frequency is based on this number. So it's going to map.
I can't hear the oscillator, but I
It's-
can hear you. I just can't hear that.
Oh, you should hear it when I do this.
I hear it.
Yep. Doop, 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 doop.
It's a little
Got it now.
quiet. I'll turn it up slightly, or a lot, I guess. Okay. Yes, and back here, and as this number changes, right, the pitch will change because of what I did in Super Collider. It's just simple. And when the ball hits the ceiling, it'll make a different type of tone. So let's do ceiling here. And put that to the send. And I'll send a different message here. Right. Fascinating. All right, so now we've got these things here, and it looks like I'm getting 2 numbers. I don't really need 2 numbers. So in fact, I probably didn't need to do, I think inside here, I didn't actually need to put both of these things through. But I'll just roll with it and say we're going to unpack it here. And we'll just take the second number and put that there. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to change the restitution of of this ball so that it changes its bounce height. Yeah. So now, oh, we lost it. Okay. Maybe a little bit better than that. Okay, so it's doing stuff. It's a little wonky right now. And there's still this order of operation problem, so I feel like when it hits the floor first, it doesn't actually do anything like it's supposed to, but yeah, that first pitch should have been higher.
If you're only using one of the numbers, you could get rid of the rest probably. In your sort and gate thing, you could just send out the impulse, and it only does it when it sends the impulse.
All right, and I'm going to change this to something a little different here so that we hear the results a little better. And okay. I don't know why I'm getting picky about this right now, but I mean, part of the issue is that I'm rounding this in Super Collider so that it's a whole tone scale. Maybe I don't need to do that. Anyway, okay, so let's continue on with this process, right? So what we could do is now make things for the, not just for the floor and the ceiling, but we can make them for each wall. So, and this is just for one ball, right? So when the second ball is in play, it'll matter. All right, so let's make sure, let's verify that when it hits a wall, we're actually getting the right message. So I'll grab this thing and I'll throw it against this wall, and it says wall left. So great. That's what we would expect. Wall left, ball 1. And now it's just repetition. And we can make another prepend here that says ball 1, wall left. And this gets sent to the same place, and then in Super Collider I can make a further definition for that particular event. So this will be the wall left definition. This time, instead of a saw wave, we'll do a, I don't know, impulse. Let's do a blip. The frequency will be based on the impulse that we receive, the strength of the impulse. We'll assume that it goes somewhere between 0 and 100, and we'll map it to the same octave that we have in these others. So as something comes in from 0 to 100, it'll actually be mapped to 60 to 72, which will be rounded to the nearest integer, and then we'll get the MIDI note associated with it. All right, so that is the frequency, and then the number of harmonics, we'll make it, we'll leave it at the default. And the message we'll receive is impulse, ball 1, and this one will be called wall left. Lowercase wall left. Uppercase, uppercase. Make sure we didn't do any errors there. I did do uppercase wall left, and so now if we were to bounce it off that wall, we got nothing, which wasn't very exciting. So let's troubleshoot that.
What I'm excited for is the you bind them together and you throw one ball. It's kind of
Yes. Okay, so I wasn't getting anything through here. I don't know what I did wrong. Let's see. Route. Let's see if we're getting anything directly out of this. There we go. So that's working. Sort and gate. That's working. And in fact, this is working now. I don't know what happened there. But for whatever reason, we're not getting that sound out of Super Collider. So let's go over here and back into Super Collider world. And we will print this message. I get the feeling I have not typed this message correctly. So probably what I should do is just directly get it from here. Maybe. All right, so now if we throw this over here, no. Fascinating. And it's not coming here anymore either. What? Okay. Well, that's weird. Did they just stopped working? Oh my gosh. No, I can't. Okay. There we go. Oh, it's the wrong ball. That's the problem. There we go. So that's working. We still don't hear it in Super Collider. We get some error which says Linlin not understood by message at 1, which is a symbol. Oh, I see. Well, let's see what this message is. Sorry to debug in Super Collider during this class. It's pretty fun. Let's try it again. So I'll reset the ball 1 here. There it is. Okay, I don't want a Linlin anymore. So cut this out. Okay, and now over there. Linlin not understood. I'm not. That's really odd. I don't see my error here. It doesn't really matter too much, but it is driving me a little bit crazy. Okay. I'm just going to recompile the library and do it again because something's gone wacky. All right. Well, feels good. Zoom. I can't even remember the name of this, how I find the port. I think now my language port has changed. Let me see if I can locate it here. 57110. I think it's like s.lang port. Okay, guess that's not it. Net editor. $57,120. That's still correct. Debug. All right. Well, communication got dropped for some reason. Can't say why. Maybe I have. Oh, I have to redefine all of these. That's why. There's our ceiling. And let's see about the wall left here. It's still unhappy, saying that it's expecting message Linlin not understood. Impulse ball 1 left. What am I doing wrong here? This is really weird. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You could use MIDI just as easily. I'm doing something stupid. I just can't see it right now. Obviously, something with the Linlin message is receiving this OSC definition here, even though I'm trying to send this one. For whatever reason, it's impulse ball 1 left. I'm not doing anything with Linlin there. That is fascinating. Anybody see what I'm doing wrong?
Don't know. Don't know Supercollider though.
This is true. It is going to the wrong place. I can tell that right now. Impulse ball 1 left. That is definitely this one right here. Well, let's not get too far in the weeds. So what you could do from here is not get confused, hopefully. And what you would want to do is now take this other physical body, right, and maybe like encapsulate what you need to encapsulate here, and then get all the collisions for the other physical body, for example. And then anytime this ball collides with a wall or a ceiling, it can have a certain sound associated with it. And to kind of give you an idea of, Andrew had asked me a couple weeks ago, is there a way you could maybe know when you have entered into a space? So like on enter is done in Unity. And I think probably the best way to do that is with something called jit.phys.ghost. So this can do two things. It can be a sensor for when something has encountered it. It is an invisible object in the space, or it can be a force. So when something enters this ghost, the ghost can push it in a direction. So for example, if the force of the ghost was -1, 0, 0, it would push things that entered that force, or entered the ghost, to the left. And the ghost can be various shapes and sizes. So maybe what makes sense, for instance, is to have a cube or something like that.
In the help file for Ghost, it has this really cool pattern it's doing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so take a look at the help file for Ghost. Here I'll put it on the world called physics. And then we've got some attributes. Collision reporting enabled, right? So if you want to know if something has entered that, then you need to turn that on. And then maybe make the shape something like, I don't know, a cube. And so now in this space, let's try to look at the right place here. So there's our force right there, our ghost. And as things enter this, we should be able to, we should then be able to see that they've entered it. So your mileage may vary here. Yeah. Right. So to answer Andrew's question, this is how you would do this. Is I believe this would tell you when something has entered that space, and you may be able to use the duration argument to say whether you have just entered or you're remaining there. Cool. Exit for that, I thought this morning, might be keeping track of the difference between the previous duration and the last duration. And maybe trying to bang that out every time. And if the duration stops changing, then you know you've exited that space. All right, so that's probably as far as we'll go with physics. To do this with the multiple object, if you wanted to do that, you would actually turn on collisions for multiple, and it would give you which collisions are occurring in the multiple, and it would name the objects according to what your multiple name is with some caveats, right? So you could look at the output of that and decide how to sort it out. And like I said, this gets really ugly in Max. So this is probably a good case for using the JS object and learning how to sort through dictionaries there. So this would bring up, a coding environment where you could look through the dictionary and get what you want and kind of work in a text-based way, which is a little cleaner than this way of working. Oof.